We're at 7:02 p.m. And let the record show that all 5 board members are present. And please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I just want to make a note before we get started that we've got some problems with Wi-Fi in the district. It's been a problem all day. If your kids came home and said they didn't have their Wi-Fi at school, we still don't have it. So we're not going to be able to live stream our meeting. We are recording it, and we will post it on the website after the meeting is over. Does that make sense? Did I do it right? Okay, great. Report of action taken in closed session. There were no action taken there. I need an adoption of the agenda to amend it.
I move that we amend the agenda, that we move discussion item 5.1 to right after 3.8.
All those in favor?
We need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, we need a second, sorry.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Merkley and seconded by Dr. Fernando. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So again, welcome, and I don't think we need to introduce ourselves. Everybody kind of knows who's who up here. Although I will take a moment and just let you know, introduce Nadia Brashear, who's our student rep. I don't ever get to do that, or I don't do it. But she comes from Arcadia, or Glendora. There I go, Freudian slip again. Glendora High School, and spends with us the entire meetings, generally speaking, and they can get long at times, but we appreciate her input and her perspective. Board recognition. Dr. De Leon.
I'm ready. Okay, so as we stated at our last meeting, this board is really grateful for all the community support that we receive here in Glendora. And so we're taking the time the next few meetings, or as long as it takes, to recognize all of the wonderful service and support groups that are out there. And there's one group that I wanted to recognize first, and then they have some announcements to make. So I would love it if Prithvi Patel and Mike Beckman from the Glendora Education Foundation would come up first. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the other person. And if before you start, if I could, oh boy, we got, oh yay, wonderful. Prithvi, do you want to introduce everybody before I list all of these wonderful things that you're doing?
Sure. So here with me today is our board members, Daniel Boyer, Aaron Ralph, Ivan Garcia, and then Mike Beckman.
Thank you so much. So for those of you who don't know, though I think most of you do, the Glendora Education Foundation has a long history of raising and donating significant monies to our school district to assist in any way possible to ensure that our students have the very best education they can have, just an outstanding experience. Some of those amazing things that they have done and supported us with, and when I say significant sums, I mean it's just been incredible. Last year, when we had to go one-on-one and get up and running quickly for distance learning when schools were closed, they came forward with technology for us, including hotspots to make sure every single child was able to get internet. That's something that they have done for a long time, bought Chromebooks and tech carts for our schools. They are this year working on teacher grants for summer enrichment in the arts and STEM programs, innovative innovative experiential learning opportunities, student scholarships, Giving Tuesday coming up, which they're going to tell us more about, fun and healthy activities for families, and traditional field trips and enrichment programs, and all of those things that go above and beyond, including music, et cetera, so that our kids can have an amazing experience. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to not just recognize the Glendora Education Foundation, but also give them an opportunity to talk to you for a minute coming up to our Giving Tuesday, which is coming up. So please.
Be careful what you ask for.
Oh, I'm like
On November 30th, we're having our annual Giving Tuesday event. We've had Giving Tuesday, as some of you might know, for the last 6 years. This will be our 7th year. We've raised over $500,000. Last year was about $120,000. The primary focus has been technology, and I think that this will be the first year that we are shifting gears and really trying to move toward more of a programmatic type of focus. And so just to make sure you know, this is the opportunity where parents can vote with their feet. They can ultimately identify, based upon what the principals determine is important in each of their schools, they can help us raise money for those things for their kids in that school. And so we're hopeful that the parents of the district will show up, and those in the community will help us raise those funds to do those important things that the principals think are needed in those schools. So with that, I'll pass it to Prithvi, and she can identify a couple of details.
First and foremost, I want you guys to save the date. It's on November 30th this year, so Giving Tuesday is November 30th. We've gotten some proposals back from the principals of some of our school sites. A lot of exciting programs, wellness programs to outdoor play programs. So the list goes on and on. So please look out for those announcements as the date comes closer. And I am happy to announce that we do have a donor, a very generous donor in our community that's going to match dollar for dollar on that day.
oh my gosh. Wow.
So double your impact on November 30th, Giving Tuesday for our Glendora Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. And trustee?
Oh, no, I have something I'd like to say. Sorry. Do we have the option? Oh, can we go ahead? Okay. I just want to say thanks. There's a group of volunteers that are standing up here, and some of them have been volunteers with the Glendora Education for a really long time, and some are newer to the Education Foundation. But the Education Foundation has been putting the needs of our students here in Glendora Unified first for 16 years now. What I want to say about this group of people is, like I said, they're all volunteers. They're going out and figuring out how to make relationships and do everything they can with both the schools and the community to support every single student in Glendora Unified. They will try and, like I said, support everything, find a program to touch every single kid. So your kid might not be doing this, but they're probably doing this. And Glendora Education Foundation has made it their mission to get to all of those students. And they've been totally adaptable every year. So whatever the needs look like, whatever, as you talked about last year with COVID, before it was getting a lot of Chromebooks into classes. Now it's more programmatic. The Glendora Education Foundation has been a partner to this district since its inception, really working with the district to figure out what the needs are, not dictating themselves necessarily. Certainly the board of directors has to agree on it, but working with the school district hand in hand as a real partner. So I thank you for your long-time commitment to this school district and the work that everybody does. It's a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. We all really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reuter. Dr. Kelson? Oh, and
Come down and present.
Sure. I thought she was going to do some talking.
To be front and center, we'll do the photo and the presentation. Maybe right around today.
You all. Yes, there you go.
Thank you. Sorry, that was clear.
first we have our very own Glendora Unified Certificate of Appreciation, which this really doesn't cut it, but we just want you to, it's just a token of our love and appreciation for you and everything you do. Thank you so much. And then also there's a resolution here from Blanca Rubio's office to a certificate of recognition from the California Assembly for the Glendora Education Foundation and in honor of their contributions to Glendora Unified School District. So we wanted to make sure that you had that.
To adorn your walls.
To adorn your walls. That's great. Good luck with Giving Tuesday. Hey. That's awesome. They're so awesome. Okay. Would you?
Okay.
We have two more?
We do. Glendora Kiwanis, Dr. De Leon.
Wonderful. At this time, I would love to invite up the president of Glendora Kiwanis, Matt Bartlett, and whatever Kiwanians you would like to bring up with you. All right. So I was told that I have to be very brave because I brought Kiwanis and Rotary on the same night, but it's because I love and appreciate both and belong to both, and both groups do amazing, amazing work. So what I wanted to do is recognize some of the wonderful things that you have done for Glendora Unified School District over the years. And yes, our very own Dr. Garcia belongs, and I belong. I'm very, very proud to be in Kiwanis with you all. So here are some of many things. Every year, Kiwanis sponsors senior scholarships for our seniors at Glendora High School and Whitcomb. They support senior research projects. They support and sponsor the Whitcomb High School Recognition Breakfast every year. They do the Pack the Patrol Car program, which I know that Mr. Gillum took over and just ran with it this year on behalf of the city and Police Auxiliary in Kiwanis. So thank you so much for that. It was amazing. Oh, it was amazing. How many backpacks did we end up doing?
318.
Wow. Wow. They sponsor the Shoes That Fit program. They sponsor the STEM Challenge for our elementary schools, the Glendora High School Key Club. They support the Glendora Education Foundation and also support our technology needs whenever possible. So I do want to thank you and Kiwanis for the bottom of our hearts for all that you do for Glendora Unified School District. Thank you so much.
And I just want to add that those 318 backpacks were stuffed to the brim with school supplies as well. So probably $60 to $80 per backpack of supplies. As we all know as parents, how much that costs every year. So I just want to add that too.
If you want to feel free to introduce everybody you have with. Did you do the introductions already?
I have not.
Okay, there you go. I didn't think you did.
Thank you to the school board for this recognition. We greatly appreciate it on behalf of the board of directors for Glendora Kiwanis. We've got the Gillums here.
Yay!
And of course, you all know Dominic. And then, of course, Mr. Osborne in the back. He's another Kiwanis member. So we thank you again. We're honored to be here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other board members? Oh, first. Nancy, do you want to do this one? Check out all these So first, our certificate of appreciation from Glendora Unified School District for all that you do on an ongoing basis. It's incredible. And then also from, here we are, from Blanca Rubio from the State Assembly Office, a certificate of recognition for Glendora, Kiwanis in honor of the contributions to Glendora Unified School District. There you go. Thank you. I'm sorry, you had introduced Bob, and I'm like, oh, wait, did you introduce everybody? Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Dr. DeLeon.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't think he said his name, Matt.
Oh, everybody, that's Matt Bartlett, the president of Kiwanis. Also in charge of Glendora Coordinating Council. Man of many hats. All right.
And our next recognition is for Glendora Rotary Club. Dr. Daly.
All right, yay. At this time, I would like to invite up Christine Smith, our president of Glendora Rotary Club, and the members of Rotary who are here with us tonight. And before we begin, I would love it if you'd introduce everybody who's up there. I should have done that first, so please introduce everyone.
Josina, and thank you.
Yay, wonderful, thank you. So I have a list of projects that the Rotary has done in support of Glendora Unified School District that we want to acknowledge and thank you for. This has happened over the past many years. They sponsor the Rotary Choral Concert, about $8,000 a year for the music programs in our school. They do mini grants for teachers and raise about $17,000 a year for that. And we know because we help you get those out to the teachers every year, and that's much appreciated by our teachers. They sponsor the Battle of the Books at the library to encourage reading for our students. They give scholarships to Glendora and Whitcomb High School as well. They sponsor our Glendora High School Interact Club. They support GEF, the Glendora Education Foundation, as well. They also support career days at our middle schools, our Middle School Student of the Month program. Also, they support RILA, the Rotary Youth Leadership Academy for high school, and TLC for 8th graders. And I don't remember what that acronym stands for, Christine. I don't either. Does anybody remember what?
Team leadership.
Teen Leadership, great conference, thank you. They have the Dan Stover Music Contest, the four-way speech contest that awards scholarships, and also the George Hensel Ethics Essay, and which also has a scholarship attached. And they used to do, before COVID, the Rotary Youth Exchange. So all of those things support the students of Glendora Unified, past and present, and we thank you so much for all of your efforts in Rotary. And I am very proud to be a Rotarian as well, so thank you so much.
A speech you'd like to give?
Yeah.
Okay. On behalf of the school district, here's our certificate of appreciation for all that you've done. And then you also get a recognition from State Assembly and Blanca Rubio's office in recognition of your contributions to Glendora Unified School District for the Glendora Rotary Club. Thank you so much for everything that you do always. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks to our servicers. We appreciate it so much. Alrighty then. Don't you just love celebrating people?
I just need to read something before we're going to move on next to the approval of
public comment.
Just, yeah, well, no, we're going to do we amended the agenda.
Sorry. I amend.
So I'm just going to read the front page of our agenda here. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. In this case, members of the media not participating in the disturbance shall be allowed to remain, and individuals not participating in such disturbances may be allowed to remain at the discretion of the board. When the room is ordered clear due to a disturbance, further board proceedings shall concern only matters appearing on the agenda. In the event that any meeting is willfully interrupted by a group or groups of persons as to render the orderly conduct of such meeting unfeasible, and order cannot be restored by the removal of the individuals who are willfully interrupting the meeting, the members of the legislative body conducting the meeting may order the meeting room cleared and continue in session. Only matters appearing on the agenda may be considered in such a session. Representatives of the press or other news media, except those participating in the disturbance, shall be allowed to attend any session held pursuant to this section. Nothing in this section shall prohibit the legislative body from establishing a procedure for readmitting an individual or individuals not responsible for willfully disturbing the orderly conduct of the meeting. And I have to say, the last several meetings, we've just really appreciated the decency by which people have come and spoke, and we hope that that will continue tonight. We are actually going to, there's been some confusion, it seems, about our policy, our procedure for selecting a committee to work on the ethnic studies curriculum that's been mandated. So I'm going to ask Dr. Kelson if she would like to give her presentation before we have public comment.
Happy to do that, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, well, good evening, Board of Trustees, Cabinet colleagues, Dr. De Leon, and esteemed community members. I'm here this evening to provide some information about the early stages of the district's consideration of Assembly Bill 101, which is known as the Ethnic Studies Graduation Requirement. So we will look at the implementation. Excuse me, I revised and did not delete one of the implementations there. We will review the implementation of AB 101 and define the application process for the community committee. This presentation aligns with District Goal 1, which has quite a bit to do with instruction, curriculum, and assessment, and Strategic Initiative 1, emphasizing the teaching of 21st century skills to prepare students for the world that awaits them after the 12th grade. Important to note that the history of Glendora Unified has included quite a bit of feedback from parents and from the community in two key areas. First, there is Board Policy 6141 about how curriculum is adopted, what goes into the selection of textbooks, the types of courses that students take. There's also quite a bit of information in Board Policy 6146, as I know the trustees are well aware, this is really more for the community, about what the graduation requirements currently are. So AB 101 was adopted recently, was made into law to impact directly the class of 2030. They are still in elementary school. However, if you go back to the beginning of the most recent mandates, March 18th of 2021, the model curriculum standards were adopted by the State Board of Education. On October 8th of this year, the governor signed the mandate in AB 101. And from now until 2026, the district with various committees will be looking at how to implement this law here in the local context. This slide has far too many words for some. However, I wanted to point out a portion of the information that is taken directly from the model curriculum standards, answering the question really, why K-12 ethnic studies now? And in the model curriculum standards adopted by the State Board of Education, it states that ethnic studies is intended to bring students and communities together. They have three key purposes: to address racialized experiences and ethnic differences as real and unique, to build greater understanding and communication across the differences, and third, to reveal underlying commonalities that bind by bringing individuals and groups together. And that is from the introduction section, page 3. So how will we know, really representing the community for just a moment, that the voice of the community will be reflected in the course as it is designed for Glendora Unified students? First, we will have an interview panel made up of 7 people, 2 teachers, 1 classified staff member, 1 Glendora Unified School District Student Board representative, and 1 representative from each the Glendora Coordinating Council, the PTA Council, and the Glendora Education Foundation. There will be a non-scoring member, and I'll talk in a minute about the scoring when we get to the application process, who facilitates this work from the Educational Services team. So the committee will have the opportunity to get together the week of December 13th. Throughout this process, from now until 2026 and beyond, the committee is accountable not only to this body, but to the community that we serve, to our students and their families. We will continue to keep all of those constituents informed about the work and to manage a transparent process through meetings at least once a semester of the various committees and through reports as requested whenever the school board or the superintendent asks that reports be made. So the community committee will have the opportunity to apply. Applications will be sent out tomorrow evening. There's a little more information coming up. They will have the opportunity to make presentations based on what they've learned, not only from the model curriculum standards, but from some of the supporting research and documents that are in the actual curriculum. And they will have an opportunity to interview to be part of the community committee using a rubric and an average score that the 7 panelists mentioned previously will be giving, using the same rubric for every applicant. Selections to the community committee, which will be made up of 10 to 15 members, will be announced December 11th, and yes, that is a weekend, by 5 p.m. The committees informing the implementation of AB 101, the model curriculum standards, and please forgive me, everyone, we were printerless due to the internet outage today. The committees informing implementation will be a small committee of both middle and high school students, because the reality is that our middle school students will be the ones who have the opportunity to take this course, or as they're exiting high school, the course will be coming in. High school students, a group of history and social science teachers and English language arts teachers. It's important to note that the model curriculum standards mention those 2 subject areas quite extensively, so we need input and direction from those teachers. Higher Education Advisory Committee, because of the vast possibilities in primary source documents and other types of writings that the average K-12 teacher may or may not know the breadth of at this time. And as mentioned as part of this presentation, the community committee. Again, 10 to 15 members per committee is what we're looking at. Did it jump? Okay. Sorry, it's really not me. It's very sensitive. Go ahead and ask. I think I'll be okay.
And Dr. Kelson, I too have a question, sorry.
So 10 to 15 for each of these focus groups or these committees.
And the same 10 to 15, if you will, like there's going to be, let's say, a category of, give me one category, like,
So high school students?
no. Inside the high school students, there's going to be 10 to 15 people, and those 10 to 15 people will be made up of a mix of different categories. Like somebody will be a teacher, somebody will be a principal. Okay.
No, these
Okay.
are actual members of those groups already. So the middle school student committee will be middle school students.
Okay.
Learning about the curriculum, meaning not learning the curriculum, but what are the requirements? What does the law say? The high school student bullet will be high school students, learning about the process, what the course is designed to be, how it might change our graduation requirements. So the same would be true for the history and social science teachers. Having a teacher committee from those two departments that looks at what the law is requiring and weighs in on what they would like to see. So eventually all of the groups will probably have to have a representative conversation across these constituents groups. But for now, this is what we know. Mrs. Merkley.
Well, I have a question about high school students because it's going to meet for how many years? 4 years? So will you
You're
just
right.
have freshmen or will you replace them as they graduate?
Certainly, that's a fine idea. And I anticipate that the associated student body, perhaps the leadership group at the high school representing different departments would want to find a way. So the high school students and the middle school students have plenty to do just with classes, I realize. So they will meet less frequently than some of the committees of adults that are involved here. However, they are definitely people who will be impacted by, if nothing else, a change to the graduation requirements.
Right, but my question is with the high school students, because you said they're going to be there for 4 years, but they won't all be there. Will you replace, like when
Yes.
one graduates, you'll just replace it
Yes.
with someone else and kind of
Correct.
bring them up to speed? Okay.
I'm sorry, I want to go back even farther, just to clarify that. We're talking about two committees here, right? One is a selection committee, and the other is the actual, this group here
Yes.
are the actual people that are going to be looking at the curriculum.
Yes.
Just to clarify that, the selection committee is different than the curriculum, if you will, committee.
The selection committee will help determine the community committee, and anyone can apply to be on the community committee. It will require a lot of the people who participate. However, we certainly welcome every community member who would like to be part of that.
And part of that community group are parents.
Certainly, yes. In
Okay.
addition to the specific member of the selection committee that is a PTA council member, the applications, by the way, will go out tomorrow evening by 7 p.m. They're going to go out to all Glendora Unified adults, parents, families via Parent Square. And the application will also be posted on district social media for community members who may not be a parent in GUSD who want to apply to participate.
And how about the community members that aren't on social media? Will it be on our website?
Need to post it.
Yes.
Okay.
It may take an extra day to get posted there because we're transitioning website companies. But yes, we can put it on the website as well.
Yes, Nadia.
That might be me.
I was wondering, is the
Thank you for asking. At this time, we have not defined an application process for each of the other focus groups. However, that is something that I will be reaching out to the high school administrators and the middle school administrators to talk more about. Yes, when we're ready to go. So in our planning team's eyes, our students have a lot to do between now and winter break because of exams and those types of things. So I anticipate that right after winter break, we will have more information ready for the student groups in time for their first meeting, which is slated for right before spring break. Thank you for asking. Yes, Mrs. Merkley.
Who is going to choose the selection panel?
The organizations that are listed here will recommend or do whatever selection process they would like to do based on their protocols. And forgive me, I can't. Maybe I can. Right, right.
This is a selection panel, and like the teachers will get together, because we wanted one ELA and one history, right? Was that social
Correct.
studies? And so the teachers will choose that, a classified will choose. Okay, so that's how that panel will be chosen.
And that's just this body featured here on this slide, the interview panel, their only role, and I really ought not say only because it's vast, their role is to review the applications. There is a written portion. There is a presentation that the selection panel will listen to for the applicants, and then there will be an actual, what we would think of as a Q&A, where this interview panel will have the opportunity to ask a set questions about the person's knowledge and desire and participation in the process. You're welcome. And it's a very short timeline, by the way. The committee plans to get together from December 6th through 9th to be able to conduct not only the presentation audience, if you will, but also the question and answer sessions.
So the selection committee will narrow it down after the presentations and then bring only that portion, the finalists, back to interview?
The rubric will indicate those things, yes, in short. For example, it's a timed presentation, and, with so many, we anticipate many applicants and a short timeline, so we have to limit the amount of time that each presentation can last. However, the rubric will indicate all of those things. So if we have to extend the time involved because so many people fill out the entire written portion of the application, I may be back to update the board, but we'll definitely do this as quickly as we can and in a reasonable amount of time. Okay?
So,
Yes.
so Dr. Kelson, just one more time for everybody who's here. Parents who are interested in being part of the Ethnic Studies Curriculum Committee would apply to be part of the community focus group, the
Yes.
community committee.
Yes.
Okay. And that will be out tomorrow at 7 o'clock, that application.
Yes, and it will go out, thank you for asking, it led me to the second to last slide. It will go out on Parent Square at social media, and I will add on the website, but it will not, it's unlikely that it will be on the website tomorrow. We'll do our best. And then we will look at the deadline of Wednesday, November 24th for the applicants, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That gives us, as a team, time to process the applications, figure out how many interview slots we need, and go from there. Okay? So it may go without saying, but thank you. And if there are any other comments or questions that I can answer on behalf of Ed Services, I'm happy to do that.
Sorry, you know me. This committee then that's going to be looking at the curriculum, you're anticipating that that will be up until it's a multi-year job.
That is correct. And part of the reason is, if I may, once we get familiar with the model curriculum standards that were adopted by the State Board of Education and are foundational, as I understand it, to the adoption of this, or excuse me, the signing of this law, AB 101, right now there are no published textbooks by the major textbook publishers. So in a usual cycle for things like this, we anticipate that could be 2 to 3 years from now if the textbook publishers decide that they're going to publish texts. What we're seeing in the landscape around the state of California, there are many districts who have adopted this already. They're using a lot of historical documents, and those documents are local historical societies, large, volumes of laws that have been on the books in the United States and or California, just a couple of examples. So it's going to take some time for an authentic, respectful of the local area curriculum to be selected. And that phrase, by the way, is throughout the model curriculum, that the work we do must respect the local area.
So if a person's considering filling out this application, does the information include, because I've gotten a preface and 7 or so
5 chapters.
5 chapters, hundreds of pages of documentation from the California Department of Education. Will that information be available so they can kind of peruse it to see if they want to commit to something like that?
Great question. I will add a link to the application to the California Department of Education Model Curriculum Standards. We've added a few of the existing documents already, but I think it would be great. It's about 900 pages of curriculum guide. So we won't do that all by January, but we do have our work cut out for us.
And we're not expected as a district to adopt all of those 900 pages. It's suggested, it's documentation that's out there and available for us to use.
So it's important to note a couple of key things. There are some strong directions in the curriculum, and there are some flexibilities to be determined at the local level. One strong recommendation is that a district adopts a course that meets the University of California's A to G requirements. Not that every child is going to the University of California, but that's what we would think of as the floor for qualification of a high school student into many colleges and universities. That is a very strong direction in the model curriculum. There are other things that are much more flexible. For example, the curriculum is very clear that a student living in Southern California in the San Gabriel Valley may have a slightly different set of supplementary texts to read and discuss than, say, a classmate who lives up near the Oregon border, because the experiences of people locally there, the history of California specific to various areas, think about the impact of the railroad as one example of many, is unique. And so the curriculum allows local committees, such as the number listed here, to take those things into consideration.
Okay, with that, we're going to jump back to,
Got an action. It's an action item?
oh, it's an action item?
Oh.
All right.
For board approval.
So approve, ratify the application and selection process for Ethnic Studies Curriculum Committee as presented. This is just for the selection process and curriculum committees.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. So move on with your selection process, Dr. Kelson.
Thank you, Dr. Kelson. That was
This
a
is
nice
going to be a
presentation. Thank you.
huge undertaking, and I appreciate all the work and the possible community and student involvement in all of this. That's what it's all about. So we're moving on to public comment. And again, we have our timer on the wall here. You have 3 minutes each, and the first card I have is Moira Anderson.
Oh, my.
Lucky you.
Oh, I didn't have this in the loan deck, remember?
Oh. And before you start, Moira, Jean Lopez, you are number 2. If you want to come and stand behind Moira here, it helps move things along if we have the next person ready to go.
Is it ready? Okay. Hi, my name is Moira, and I'm a concerned parent of not only my 16-year-old son, Jack, but of all the kids whose voices are not heard. Zandra, I know you are good and kind and love not only your kids and your grandkids, but ours too. And whether you agree with me or not will not change the fact that I love you and who you are. In my world, differences do not take away a friendship, and I would always call you my friend. I would like to start off by saying that I've never spoken before, up until recently. I have never had a reason to. Glendora Unified used to be a safe place for all the kids. My concerns are valid, as are all who speak. My question to you is all on the board, is if my thoughts don't align with yours, does it even matter if I voice them? Are your minds made up and you just let us in here to appease us? Is your whole board unanimous in their thinking? Does anyone have differing opinions? What is happening? It makes me believe we the people, for the people, have no voice unless it is what you all believe. Who on this board is going to open their eyes and see what is happening to our beloved district? My son Jack spoke last month. The courage of all the teens and the young people who speak up is admirable. It was so nice to hear you commend the students 2 weeks ago, but nothing for the ones who spoke up against your agenda. I know my son was just as courageous. Did you not just think that? Did you not think so? That was truly hard to watch. Imagine what it felt like for my son. Why bother? What kind of message does that send to him? My son missed school on Monday when we were opposing the mask mandates. He was told by his teacher that anyone who missed needed to get over themselves. And I'm pretty sure she must have meant us parents needed to get over ourselves, as teens and their attendances are up to us. Does she criticize all students who stand up for themselves, or just the ones she doesn't agree with? When did a teacher's political opinion become a thing in our classrooms? This ethnic studies is going to do one thing. It's going to divide us and cause more problems than ever before. Why are we so focused on our differences? My godchildren are mixed races. Is their father an oppressor? He fought for our country, and he's a good and decent man. Their mother also fought for our country, and I can assure you she is not oppressed. Will their children be taught otherwise? No, they won't. They're moving away so they don't have to deal with this as their future. How am I supposed to raise up a young white male and have him be strong enough in his own mind to know that he's not a bad guy? He is not an oppressor, and he is not innately racist, no matter what your curriculum might tell him. May God lead your ways and change your hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Lopez. Next is Gavin Garcia.
Good evening. My name is Gene Lopez. My wife, Kristen, and I are parents of Catalina Lopez and Carly Lopez, both students at Glendora High School. So I want to start out by saying that ethnic studies could be just another name for critical race theory. And so I think that's important that we recognize that. And as I was looking at this earlier, I remembered a quote, and I had to look it up, but I remembered a quote from Justice Potter Stewart, who in 1964 said, it's hard to define obscenity or it's hard to define obscenity or pornography, but I know it when I see it. And likewise, for many of us, it's hard to define critical race theory, but we know it when we see it or we read about it. So I took an article from Hillsdale College's Imprimis, and the article was written by Christopher Rufo, who is the director of Battlefront, a public policy and research center. And so he defines what it is and how it works. And I'll try and get through this as quickly as I can. But critical race theory is an academic discipline formulated in the 1990s, built on intellectual framework of identity-based Marxism, regulated for many years to universities and obscure academic journals. Over the past decade, it has increasingly become a default ideology for public institutions. It has been injected into government agencies, public school systems, teacher training programs, and school curricula. There are a series of euphemisms deployed by its supporters to describe critical race theory, including equity, social justice, diversity and inclusion, and culturally responsive teaching. Critical race theorists are masters of language construction, hence ethnic studies. And realize that neo-Marxism would be a hard sell. Equity, on the other hand, sounds non-threatening and is easily confused with the American principle of equality. But the distinction is vast and important. Indeed, equality, the principle proclaimed by the Declaration of Independence, invented in the Civil War and codified into law in the 14th and 15th Amendments, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, is explicitly rejected by critical race theorists. In contrast to equality, equity is default.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Can I just have like 30 seconds more? Is that possible? No. So,
Sorry. We have to stay
No, I
fair. We have to stay
understand. I
fair to
understand.
everyone else.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Jamie Lambertson. Hi, Gavin.
Hi. Esteemed members of the board, my name is Gavin Garcia, and I am a junior at Glendora High School, and I am very much honored that you are willing to give students like us a chance to voice our concerns to you. I would like to discuss the growing problem and how students are going about wearing their mask. The information that has been given to the county for as long as the school year started surrounding the pandemic, as well as the correct time and place of wearing masks, have rarely been changed and modified. However, despite this, during school hours, the amount of students wearing masks at all has increased. Not wearing masks at all has increased. Incidents revolving around the rate of infection haven't gone down to the point where people are safe enough to go on like how it was before. I feel like as if the student body needs a reminder that, well, yes, we are able to talk to our friends in person. We are still in a pandemic. There are people who are still at risk at receiving infection, and even if it may not affect the children as much, that still doesn't take into account the parents, the grandparents that are still very much at risk. Yes, people have a choice, but those choices shouldn't come at the risk of others. Something as simple as reminding the students to put a mask over their nose and to keep the mask while being outside and inside, surprisingly. Every little action has the capacity to help, and I feel as if the student body, a place which has the highest count of people in close proximity with one another, needs to be reinformed of what they can and should do. I haven't used much time, so with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, your attention, and your understanding.
Thank you, Gavin. And following Ms. Lambertson, oh, you're on here twice. So the next person would be Carmen Berry.
Hello, I'm an executive member of the Concerned Glendorians. Tonight, I'm mostly going to be speaking to the parents, the grandparents, and the students of Glendora Unified School District. I ask that you open up your hearts and your minds to hear what I have to say. 2 weeks ago, I watched the board meeting from home. I listened to both sides. I came to understand two things. There seems to be a desire to come together and unite, but my hope is that even if we disagree, we can come to a middle ground. And that this current school board in front of me isn't going to represent the heart of the city and the history of Glendora, as it has been. Concerned Glendorans had asked the school board publicly and privately to make a stand on CRT, and they refused to put it in the agenda to vote on it. A silent vote on this matter is a loud answer, and parents, you need to be watching and standing up. My beautiful friend Helen Glaze spoke last board meeting. We don't see eye to eye on many issues, but I can appreciate her desire to get a group of people together and look over the new ethnic studies curriculum. My main concern is that it seemed that only people who were like-minded met to dissect the material. To truly analyze anything, you need to have all sorts of people with different mindsets, cultural perspectives, and different walks of life to get a full rounded viewpoint. We all have different perspectives, and we can come together and learn from each other. When you listen to Holocaust survivors and their families, they will tell you that everyone loved Hitler so much they voted him in. They trusted him and thought he had the best interests. He started his initiative by telling moms, go to work, and you have free childcare and new toys. Babies on up. Do you think Hitler told them that they're going to indoctrinate their children? Do you think he was open and honest with his plans? No, people who saw it got out, or they tried. We should absolutely question who we trust in our current society, because we are extremely confused what the real truth is. A couple weeks ago, it came out that Merrick Garland, our U.S. AG, directed FBI and DOJ to investigate parents, aka terrorists, who are standing up against school boards, but he also has a son-in-law who is a co-founder of a company that incorporates CRT through social and emotional learning. That seems like a conflict of interest, doesn't it? I attend a multicultural church in Pomona, and all my friends of color are angry about CRT curriculum being taught currently in many districts here in California, including this one. I am a huge proponent and voice for all people, different cultures, races, and being given the opportunity to succeed in life. My kids are a quarter Chinese. My half-sister is half black. My dad took me to many parts of the world growing up. I have raised my kids to love each and every person, but one thing I have learned as a mom is that kids feel confident in their own skin and their identity because of their parents and their family. It is our job to raise and train them up, and for I believe they are known and seen themselves as Jesus sees them. They are loved as they are, completely unnecessary that it comes from our school to teach them that. It comes from the home. You look at me and you see white. Thank you.
Kate Hamilton. Ms. Berry.
Hi, my name's Carmen Berry. I spoke last meeting. It was my first visit to the rodeo. And in the past 2 weeks, I've been learning more and finding out more of what's been going on. Excuse me. I have a mask on and I still cover my face. I want to speak just to a different issue, which is the anger. We have a country that's divided. We have a country that's fighting itself, and we have a community that is fighting itself. I'm a publisher, and I just published a book on the brain, and I learned something really interesting, which is we all have a little thing in the back of our heads called I forgot what it was. Amygdala, thank you, there we go, an amygdala. And the amygdala is the fear center of the brain. When we are angry, when we're scared, when we're worked up, we can only run, we can freeze, or we can fight. And we need to stop fighting. We have to stop this. We have to move into the top of our brains and be able to listen to each other. Stop fighting, listen. Stop fighting and listen. That's what we need to do. And so I'm just here to say that simple message. When we are fighting, we are going to lose. And I'm going to tell you why. You have two strategies, win-lose or win-win. This community is made up of 48% of white and 52% of people of color. If you're going to do a win-lose approach, you have to destroy your opponent. You can't. You cannot destroy a portion of this community. So we must come up with a win-win. Bring it down. Bring the conversation down. Bring the conversation to each other and listen. Don't fight. Unite and listen. Don't fight, unite, and listen. That's going to make the difference. You can't bully this group of people into doing something you want because you are angry about it. So let's not fight, unite, and listen.
Thank you. Julie Porter.
Dr. DeLeon and fellow school board members, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am Kate Hamilton. I have a son at GHS. I did speak at the last school board meeting, but I felt compelled to add to my comments here tonight. I listened to the statements made opposing the proposed ethnic studies curriculum. 18 months ago, I may have sided with those who oppose this. I didn't see any racism, nor did I in any way think I was one. Yet after the George Floyd murder, I was troubled. I did not understand why this kind of thing happens. I was of the mind, why didn't he just comply? But I went on a quest to learn. I read numerous books, I watched documentaries and films, but most importantly, I listened to friends I have that are non-white. I learned that they do indeed experience racism in their everyday lives. It may be subtle or something that I don't find offensive, but that's not the point. I learned that my experiences are not the same lived experiences as others. I learned that I do indeed have biases that I was not recognizing and that I need to correct. I think we owe our children a broader perspective on our nation's history and on our diversity. Studies have shown that large majorities of the books published for children and young adults feature white characters. When characters of color or other marginalized groups do appear, they are often portrayed as stereotypes or exist at the fringes of the story. Choosing texts that provide protagonists and heroes in multiple cultural contexts allows students to see themselves in the story, not just the struggle that they've gone through, but how they have thrived or overcome or still fight the struggle. And more importantly, it allows all students to hear these stories of other cultural groups and reflect on them. Our children do indeed live in a multicultural world. That multicultural world is right here in the United States. Rather than be divisive, ethnic studies will strive to help students bridge differences that already exist in experiences and perspectives. The only way we're truly going to make a great America is to have all Americans feel like they're included. We have to honor our diversity. It's not a threat, it's our strength.
Thank you, Mrs. Porter. Joyce Corrigan?
Yes.
Next.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Julie Porter. I live in Glendora. I actually grew up in Glendora, and I have a daughter at Coleman Elementary. I was inspired to come speak tonight because I attended last month's meeting, and I was so impressed with the group of Glendora High School students who came and spoke. They shared their stories and their lived experiences in this community. All advocated and identified a need for an ethnic studies curriculum. Many of us here at these board meetings are parents or grandparents, and while we all want what is best for our children, it's vital that the board listens to the students and is responsive to their needs, because they are the primary population that the board serves. There's a lot of anxiety and misinformation about ethnic studies and this mandate, and I want to commend the board on establishing the Ethnic Studies Curriculum Committee. This is an important step in engaging our community and those who may have concerns about how this new curriculum will be implemented in a productive way. This is a state mandate, and just like the COVID mandates, the board isn't at liberty to go against them at the demand of a small group of community members. Many schools across California are already implementing ethnic studies, and researchers from Stanford University and the National Education Association report that all students benefit from ethnic studies. Ethnic studies promotes respect and understanding among races and cultures. It supports student and academic success, and it teaches critical thinking skills. I'm excited that my daughter will have access to this updated curriculum in the future. Also at the last meeting, Dr. DeLeon reported that Glendora has one of the highest vaccination rates in LA County in those between the ages 12 to 18. that nearly 80% of young people in this age group in Glendora have been vaccinated before any mandates came down. To me, this is strong evidence that the majority of parents and students in Glendora are in support of COVID vaccines and protocols that are necessary in keeping our community safe. It's because of these health mandates that all of our children have had access to in-person learning this year. We know that we have high-risk children attending Glendora public schools, children with autoimmune diseases and cancer, and they have the right to receive an in-person education in a safe and healthy environment. I want to give a special thanks to Dr. Bonner, our principal, who's been very responsive and thoughtful about safety this past year. Prior to the start of the school year, she even organized new outdoor lunch areas with COVID safety in mind. And much to our relief, our daughter got her first vaccine at Friday's clinic at the high school. So many thanks to the nursing staff and everybody involved in making these clinics possible. In addition to hosting these, I think it might be beneficial if GUSD hosted town halls or webinars where parents can talk to doctors about these vaccinations. While we're very thankful that GUSD has made our children's health and safety a priority, it's evident that we have work to do. I'm hopeful that with the board's continued efforts in engaging our student population and the greater community, that we can all work together to move Glendora forward in a positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter.
Thank you. My name is Joyce Corrigan.
I'm sorry, Joyce, before you get started, let me just call the next person. Donna Luce, L-U-C-E. Okay, thank you for waiting.
Thank you very much. Joyce Corrigan, board members, citizens of Glendora, and residents and parents. I want to share some good news and some bad news this evening. I've been listening to some of the guest speakers, and I want to say up front that there isn't one parent in here who is against our students learning about different ethnic groups and studies. We're not opposed to that. Our concern has always been against critical race theory, which is a proven Marxism theory. I stood at this podium a couple of times over the past few months expressing my concern relevant to the introduction of CRT to our children. I've stated it is clearly evil, it's Marxist, it's driven to pit our children against one another based on color of their skin. White people are told they're the oppressors, and all others are the oppressed. Now I'm told that the board has said, we're not teaching CRT, we're teaching ethnic studies. It's very coincidental that after thousands of protests across the United States to school boards, the name's changing. It's a very typical left-wing strategy. Change the name and everybody will think it's different. It isn't. It is Marxism. Can each person of this board state emphatically that they don't teach our children that they are oppressors if they're white? Ronald Reagan once said that freedom or liberty is only one generation from being lost. It's happening so fast before our eyes right now. Children and citizens have been taught to hate the United States. The Family Nuclear Center is in danger. Marxism is in the White House. State governments are throughout the United States. The majority of mainstream media, such as our press, are either not sharing the whole story or ignoring stories altogether. The press was always thought to be one of the last hopes for this country, but that's no longer true. High-tech companies, as you know, are banning speech, which they deem to be fake, but it's silencing individuals' word. Worse, we have corporations and high-tech companies silencing workers, threatening, obey us or you're going to be fired. You're silenced. New Congress is now considering a bill regarding freedom of speech. Beware, it's a slippery slope. When you have a governmental organization charged with determining what is real and what isn't, we've lost our freedom of speech. I don't like to see our flag burned, but I will fight for that person's right to express themselves. So what is good news this evening? You've heard all of the boards. You've awakened the mama bears throughout the United States, the citizens of the United States. The ex-governor of Virginia, a dominant blue state, lost his governor.
Thank you, Mrs. Kerrigan. Andrew Rivas.
Hi, my name is Donna Luce, parent of a middle schooler and high schooler, former high school biology and physiology teacher, researcher, nutrition consultant, and health coach. I'm here today for two reasons: to urge you to listen to the heartbeat of Glendora parents and to protect our children we've entrusted to you. First, the parents have spoken, but you've failed to listen time and time again. The two most recent times being in regards to the vax mandate. Remember when over 1,200 students stayed home, including mine? And also to getting a yes or no CRT vote on the agenda. 1,500 signatures, yet you're pretending that, quote, CRT isn't here. Call it whatever you want and tie a pretty bow on it. But when I see a spade, I call it a spade, along with hundreds of thousands of angry parents across this nation. I'm sure you're well aware of the elections last week. Parents are not sitting by any longer while money and power-hungry school boards try to ruin our children. You would be wise to take note of that and get a yes or no CRT vote on this agenda. Secondly, let me address this vax mandate for our kids. You've said you'll wait to see how the state leads, but I and countless others here are saying push back now. Follow Chino Valley School District and tell Sacramento now you oppose the mandate, and let's see you fight for our children. Some science for you here. From the beginning, 146 out of 28 billion kids died from COVID, less than the flu. And every single one had comorbidities, bringing the effective death rate in children to 0%. Yet studies show that the vax can have a death rate of 100 deaths for every one death in children, for every one COVID death in children. This is beyond negligence, it's child abuse. So if you won't fight for our kids and will try to force this on them, every one of you be prepared to sign a document taking full legal responsibility for any health problems that arise for this forced injection. Corey, you told me in an email on 10/4/21, quote, I will call and text Assemblywoman Rubio as well as some other friends in Sacramento in the Assembly and Senate. I hope you made those calls and texts. I'm sure you did because you care about our children. What this boils down to is this is about good and evil. Ask yourselves, do I want to be on the side of good or evil? The Lord said he will fight for us, so choose wisely. Finally, I'd like to send you all a document. I'm sure you've heard of it, although you may or may not have read it before, but it begins with "We the People." Thank you very much.
Carmen Kubak.
15 days. 30 days. Fast forward a year. We're still in the same place how we were last year. And if you remember, towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, the Biden administration and Dr. Fauci said they weren't going to enforce the vaccine mandate because it's not right. Fast forward a couple months, they do it. School boards are picking it up. You guys need to abolish that right now. Study came out a couple months ago saying that we have natural immunity and that it's 12% more likely to be more effective than the vaccine. I'm all for freedom, but if you are telling our kids you can't go to school because they are not getting the vaccine, then take your kids home and homeschool them and get them out of the school. Now, I agree with everyone here that, we have our disagreements, we must come in love and peace. But what's not right is to bring something demonic such as critical race theory. And what you learn in that is that if you're a white man or a white person, you're automatically racist. Other races could be racist too. So if you guys are going to bring critical race theory in here and teach that white people are bad, a majority of you guys wouldn't be here on this board. So if you guys are going to teach this and teach that the white person is bad, Mr. Corey Ellison, would you denounce your white privilege? Xandra, would you denounce your white privilege? Matthew 7:21 says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me in the day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me. I pray that the Holy Spirit comes over the school board right now, and that we could all, even though we disagree, unite and love one another. 1 Samuel 16:17 says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Critical race theory looks on the outward. But Jesus teaches us that we must look people in the heart. So I encourage you guys not to pass critical race theory here and teach our children that every white person is bad. Joe Biden said a couple years ago, or a year ago, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. He's racist. People are calling Trump racist.
Thank you, Mr. Riva. Janet Kubek. Carmen Kubek, Janet Kubek. I'm sorry?
I don't believe Cameron is present. He's my son.
Okay, then I'm going to call Christina Butcher.
But she's Janet.
Right, she can speak, but I'm calling the next person in
To
line.
save you time, I didn't.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Let me just call Christina Butcher to line up. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Kubek.
Well, good evening. I would like to preface what I'm about to share comes under the banner of a mama bear who's graduated to a grandma bear. My personal observation from our last meeting, like all of you, I was so very proud to see GHS students come to speak as I cherish our First Amendment. Though I didn't agree with them, it's very important to uphold our freedom of speech. We hope to have someday the opportunity to hear from other GHS students, perhaps from the Turning Point USA Club. My hope is that the board will acknowledge and commend them as you did 2 weeks ago in your closing statements regarding the students that spoke. It should not be based on the content of their speeches or which side you align with, but rather that they exercise their First Amendment rights. Next, heavy on my heart was the declaration in the closing statements, and I quote, "Those 3 letters have never come out of the mouths of any of our administrators or board members, saying that it was coming out to our district, saying that we are looking at curriculum for CRT. I challenge anyone in this district to find somebody that's used those 3 letters." End of quote. This is difficult to believe, as in previous meetings, items mentioned included possibility of holding a CRT study session, district paying $20,000 for a CRT consultant. Perhaps due to the repackaging of CRT and how it is now referred to as ethnic studies, it's more acceptable, but we do need to return to educating our children, not indoctrinating them. Here's the outcome of a recent private discussion between volunteers and the GUSD school board representatives, to name just a few, that they are not going to take a vote in abolishing CRT in Glendora schools, that the topic of CRT is not going to be on any agenda. They denied that CRT exists in Glendora schools. They rejected the petition of over 1,500 voices, rejected the proposed solutions to help parents feel assured that their kids will not be subjected to this divisive ideology. However, numerous red flags are being uncovered, including the hiring of that consultant, and it's been flagged by the Parents Defending Education Association, as well as how they have chosen to structure the Ethnic Studies Curriculum Committee to a highly limited audience and voice, directly going against how they told the public they wouldn't do that. Is it going to be transparent, informed, and accountable? Finally, the power of parents. Ideally, the school board, district leadership, and families work together for our students. They all play different roles. School board set the vision, goals, and policy for the district. The superintendent answers to the board, and parents and the public at large hold the board accountable. 2 very recent examples of the power of parents took place last week. Of course, you know about Virginia's race for governor. The LA Times had stated that Youngkin's mantra was "Parents Matter," appealing to voters who want more to say in how topics such as race and gender identity are taught in their children's schools. Locally, last week on Wednesday, the Chino Valley USD voted on a resolution urging Governor Newsom to repeal or rescind the vaccine mandate for students and staff. Parents spoke out and the school board heard. In closing, I'd like to just revisit a speech by Ronald Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Chambers.
I have
Lived in Glendora for 32 of my 44 years of life. Graduated from GHS in 1995. I have a child that will graduate in 2022. As a child who grew up mentally and physically abused by her parents, I would just like to thank many Glendora parents for teaching me. For example, having a loving and functional marriage, raising a child and unabashedly letting her know she is the reason why I breathe, and did not continue the abuse that was a part of my everyday. Showing me what I thought was normal was anything but. There were so many Glendora families and teachers that taught me that I could be I want to be sure to include that in my thank you. I believe strongly that we should believe each other's experiences, but we should also tell the whole experience. I believe Glendora is a great town, not only because of my childhood, but of my daughter. There will come a day when more balance is needed. But for now, I thank you for listening to me, showing me something that I would have never known. But I never even thought was possible growing up.
Thank you. Aiden Rudd. No, you're fine, Lisa. Stay. It's just the next person behind you.
Okay.
Aiden Rudd. Okay. All you.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. I have 5 kids in the district, 20 years now in Glendora's Unified School District. It's been great. I'm afraid that it might be over if this vax mandate goes through, among some other things. But the FDA just approved for immediate release a blood thinner called Pradaxa for children to treat 3 months to 12-year-olds. Right before a vaccine rollout that's actually causing strokes and heart conditions. And I wonder if that's a coincidence that something like that should roll out. I was injured by pharmaceuticals. In 2004, I had a heart attack. So, and I suffer from chronic migraines. I won't take medication because I have fear. So, with this emergency use vaccine that has no promise that there are no side effects that will harm my children, no one's sticking that in my kids. I'm one voice. I don't know if I stand alone, but I do know there are things I have to do to protect them. I love them. I love this school district. I've loved it all the years. But when it comes down to that, it's not FDA approved. And I hope that doesn't get pushed through. I really do. It breaks my heart. But thank you. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much.
Michael Denny.
Hi, my name is Aiden Rudd, and I'm a retired school principal of 15 years and a 35-year resident of Glendora. All my kids went to school here, K through 12, my three kids. I was past president of the Lassie League here for a couple of years. I've been a past president of Rotary Club in St. Gabriel and in Lions Club in Covina. Always very involved in my community. I just need to let you know, you're making some really bad decisions based on fear of a virus that has over a 99.8% survival rate for most of us. This is unsubstantiated fear. So let me give you a couple of things to truly be fearful about. That mask you keep insisting that people wear decreases the amount of oxygen in your lung tissue. I also want to tell you, I've also taught research and statistics at the graduate level, so I've had a lot of time to research all this stuff since I've been home. But that mask is decreasing the amount of oxygen in your lung tissue. We now know that this virus uses something called a furon cleavage site to merge with your lung tissue to infect you, and it works better with decreased oxygen. Peer-reviewed research clearly shows that wearing a mask increases your chance of developing upper respiratory infection 13 times more than a person not wearing a mask. So I would stop wearing a mask immediately if I were you. And also, the mask doesn't block the viruses anyway. It's like blocking a BB gun with a chain link fence. It's not going to stop any virus. Your actions and the actions of many government agencies are in violation of the United States Constitution, and you will be held accountable for your actions. You need to do your own research. Following orders is not an excuse. I also want to tell you, as a principal, I used to try to unite my community, and I had one rule I had told the teachers at the beginning of every year is we treat every single student every single day with respect. We don't yell, we don't argue, we don't use sarcasm, and that pretty much covers it. And then we do. I had a lot of little things we do to help kids feel special at school, and I felt I was pretty successful since I have hundreds of kids that still follow me and talking about where they are in life, and even though they're in their 20s and 30s, and they're doing many things for their communities. So I'm really proud of the schools that I had in the past. And also, being in schools, I know that they love TLAs. TLA is a three-letter abbreviation, and they change them whenever there's a little bit of heat. So if you have CRT, you might change it to SEL or ES, Ethnic Studies. You could change the name. It's the same thing. But I remember doing that, and I also remember, and I hope you haven't done this, but I remember when there was, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rudd. Brian Faber. Hi, Mr. Denny.
Hi, my name is Michael Denny. I'm a parent of a 1st, 3rd, 6th, and 8th grader here in the district. This is my first school board meeting, and believe me, I don't want to be here. But I felt this was a time, to have more perspectives in the room. I grew up in Azusa. Both me and my wife, we attended elementary, middle, and high school there. And I don't mean any disrespect to the great teachers and administrators in that district, but the exam scores and other measures obviously state that they are not the pinnacle of the public school system in this country, and for a variety of reasons. My wife and I wanted it better for our kids, and we knew that Glendora is one of the best school districts for miles around. We moved to the city, and instead of paying $50,000 less for the exact same house, literally the same design, below the 210 in the Charter Oak School District, we opted to invest for the better school district. That $50,000 now is $70,000, $80,000 is literally only because of the school district. Think about that over the thousands of houses in this city. You guys reside over $1 billion of value just because of this school district. As I said, this is one of the best school districts. I've heard it stated in these meetings by some of the board members and superintendent that it needs improvement. All things can be better, of course, but I'm urging that you please consider what you are doing. Are the policies and programs you're instating truly going to help the students in this school district, or are they the fashion of the time? We know for a fact that we have a well-running, working school district. The market doesn't lie in the housing prices. The stories of our family members driving their kids in to this school district to get a better education don't lie. I've heard Dr. De Leon mention the fact that the underprivileged or at-risk students don't perform as well as in other students in this district. And we'd always strive, to improve, those who are in need. But I would ask, are these students underperforming their peers in other lower quality school districts? Underperformance of these groups is a fact in every school district in this country, and I don't think anyone has solved that problem. I would just caution this board that not to hurt what is already a good, if not great, school district that is serving all of its students right now in the pursuit of perfection. I also wanted to urge Dr. DeLeon and this board to be servants of this community and not think of yourselves as change agents for this community. Glendora is unique. I certainly don't agree with all the things that have been said and that will be said, but I respect people's rights to speak their mind, and I think this community respects other people's rights to speak their mind. And so I would just hope that this board would do what is right in this very fraught time and thread the needle to serve this community and hear what is being said and do everything they can to.
Thank you, Mr. Denny. Tara Patton.
Hi, my name is Brian Faber. I have two kids in the school district here, first and a third grader at Sutherland. I'd like to thank you guys for your continued support and work you do to make our children's education better. I would like to thank Dr. DeLeon for responding to my email about volunteering to be part of the group that meets with officials who can help to ensure that California will not enforce a mandatory vaccination requirement for the students at the Glendora Unified School District. I'm excited to meet with the officials, but would also like to ask the School Board Commission to continue to help with this as you have more experience in navigating this, a meeting like this. Like myself or other parents, you guys are at a different level than we are. As you know, on October 18th, there was a call out of school for kids and parents to protest against mandates that the state is looking into putting in place. 700 students from Glendora Unified School District not attending school that day, it shows that there is a group in the district who are concerned about these mandates. There's another scheduled call out of school on November 15th, where the students and parents of the districts will have the ability to show the district that this is an important concern for them. The Glendora Unified School District is a great district that many of the parents are excited to have our kids in. And homeschooling or changing districts is not a preferred choice, but a choice that would have to be made if a mandatory vaccination requirement would be put in place. As vaccine mandate concerns in the district continue, I'd like to once again ask the School Board Commission to continue to help and support the group in the district that are against the vaccines mandates. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Bennett. Hello, Ms. Patton.
I'm going to start off by reading comments made by our school board members at the last meeting on 10/25. These will be direct quotes. Corey Allenson said, "It's nice to see our students be involved and get involved and do it respectfully." Elizabeth Ruder said, "I want to really acknowledge the students that came out and spoke this evening. I encourage them to keep coming. We value their feedback." Zandra said, "I want to acknowledge all the students that got up and spoke tonight. You think it's tough being an adult and getting up here? Try being a 17-year-old and standing up knowing that you are going to feel some opposition to how you feel. I think their bravery extends beyond bounds, and I'm very proud. They are the reason that I'm here. You can tell I'm ready to cry. I'm so proud of them. However, if you agree or disagree with them, it took a heck of a lot of courage." Penelope De Leon said, "First and foremost, to our students that spoke tonight, we do this for you. We do this work for you. You are incredible citizens. Thank you for teaching us a lesson." They were articulate, they had their points written, and they showed bravery. And finally, Mr. Fernando. Fernando thanked all the students that spoke, acknowledging their ability to articulate their viewpoints, whether people agree with them or not, their ability to critically think and use evidence, thanking students for being active members in the community and modeling for us civil engagement that we all hope to become. Then he said, "As we continue to move forward, I hope the public understands that our teachers are also critical thinkers and they understand the educational and developmental needs of the children and what information is appropriate for them at what level. Not the parents, but the teachers.
Now I'd like to introduce you to Jack McDonald that spoke on 10/11. I was here that night and I saw the courage that it took for him to share with what his experiences have been at Glendora High School. Now I'd like to read the comments that you said from the board said after Jack spoke that night. There were none. Alex Thomas, who wasn't able to make it tonight, courageously spoke on 9/27. After Alex finished sharing his viewpoints, before he could even leave this podium, Zandra called him back and publicly shamed him. I guess these same sentiments of being courageous for a 17-year-old to get up and speak only goes if they agree with your narrative. I sat through the last meeting praying that God would help me to see the views that I don't understand, hoping that I would get some insight into that. The only insight I received that it is clear that this board does not support views like mine. I went from blood boiling to tears streaming down my face. And this is why we parents do what we do. We have to face the reality that we don't have a board that works for us. We as a community got our first lesson in equity. My question for you, Corey, is did you get it right?
John Harrell.
Hi, I'm Susan. I'm just going to get to the point. This week I met with a educational lawyer and I was informed that the funds for the district cannot be withheld if you do not comply with mandates. Cannot be withheld. The districts are in control. You've been, and we, whatever, duped. It's a myth. I do have that in legal format, and I will get it to you if you want it. The only money that you may lose is COVID safety and relief money, which is actually quite a bit of money. 18 years, Victor Marcel died while warming up for a football team. 16-year Kane suffers cardiac arrest. He's in current life support. 16 years, unnamed, suffers cardiac arrest during a football training camp. 13 years, James Nova. Cardiac arrest, collapses on the field during a practice, unknown whether he lived or not. High school player, unknown, collapses from cardiac arrest in a practice. 22 years old, Allie, collapses during a game from a cardiac arrest. 19 years, Sebastian, died while playing hockey. 19 years, Nate, dead after cardiac arrest. High school football player, dead after heart attack, dies in the hospital. 18, 24, 15, 25, the numbers of their ages go on and on and on. This is just the heart issues that have occurred. This is not all of the issues that are occurring. First trials to be done in other parts of the country is where I got these numbers, Germany, Denmark, and Egypt, and so on. What do they all have in common? They all decided to do the vaccine trial for children. No, the dosing or the vaccine has not been changed or reviewed as dangerous. I myself have lost 2 of my dear friends within days of their second dose of vaccinations. One currently in Fresno, and I'm going to get choked up. She's in Fresno right now fighting for her life with COVID. The therapeutics did not help her. The doctor said many times that does not happen when you have been vaccinated. Her husband, who has not been vaccinated, took the same therapeutics and is feeling great by the next day. She is a teacher. He's a nurse practitioner. The mRNA was never, and I say never, created for young and healthy people, ever. God may God be the only one that you ever look to for guidance, because he's the only one that can give it to you correctly. If you enforce these criminal mandates, that's exactly what they are. All parents will act accordingly if something does happen to their child. No, you are not individually exempt from personal lawsuits. The last meeting, I asked for research and safety of the vaccine to be sent within your research, and I have not seen that yet. Thank you.
Mr. Harold.
Good evening. Again, my name is John Harold, and I would like to say something. I've now come to a number of these meetings, and one of the things I noticed, and I've been to a lot of meetings in my time, is that you immediately read those, what I consider threats, saying if everyone's disruptive, what you're going to do to them. These people are not disruptive. You want to see disruptive meetings? I've been to disruptive meetings. The parents that have come before you are coming from the heart, and they're not disruptive. The reason why that concerns me is I also am a little worried about your closed sessions. Again, based on my training and experience, a lot of people use closed sessions to talk about things they don't want to talk in public about. And what I noticed immediately is looking at, you always have these closed sessions, almost every single meeting. That's unusual. And particularly since one of the items on it is potential litigation pursuant to government code section. What litigation? You don't say what type of litigation. I'm used to that because a lot of times my name is usually mentioned, potential litigation. You don't say what the potential litigation is. And what really worries me is 2.3, to discuss the threat to public services facility or public health emergency pursuant to government code section. So you were discussing an emergency back in closed session that was so important that you have to keep it secret about this emergency, but yet you decided nothing. Because when you came out, you said nothing. So I'm curious, what is that emergency that you were discussing about in closed session? I hope, and I warned you about this, a speaker already mentioned the Attorney General of the United States saying that these people are terrorists. And we know that he has ordered the FBI to look into it. And I warned you weeks ago, you better not be doing the same thing. You better not be treating these people and discussing them in closed session because you think that they're dangerous or they're terrorists. Because if you do, you better be right. Because it was mentioned before, and I've told you before, another thing I have problems with, people keep coming up here and making public records requests of you guys. You don't respond. Are you trying to make lawyers rich? The city of Glendora will tell you what happens when you do not answer public records requests. That's easy to fight with you. And trust me, you don't want to be depoted by somebody like me, or even worse, my wife. She's tougher than I am. You have to start following the laws. People are asking you for documents. I asked you. I'm a lawyer, and I asked you for what you are basing these decisions on. Because obviously, you must have some treatises, you must have books, you must have studies. Before you are forcing children to go through what you are, you better have something to back it up. I've asked you now 3 times for that information, and either there is none, or you're keeping it from me. Now, that's not a smart move.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell. We're moving on to comments by the Board of Education. Mr. Ellenson?
No comments, thank you.
Mrs. Reuter?
Thank you very much. I would like to just clarify a couple of things. I've had a couple of meetings with community members over the last 2 weeks. One of the last gentlemen, I'm sorry, I can't remember every single name, but he had asked for the meeting with the legislator, and I want to thank him for doing that. But I also want to make clear that in the conversation I had, it was misunderstood that we were just saying, go talk to your legislators because the community is split, so it's hard for us to advocate one way or another. That's not what the intention of the program was. It's that we are happy to facilitate the meetings with the legislators for you. We will take you there. What's complicated is, as you've heard tonight, that there are differing opinions on these matters, so it makes it hard for us to advocate one way or the other, but we recognize that these issues, especially the vaccine mandate, are issues that people feel very passionate about and that they need to speak with the legislators as far as that's concerned. So our offer to you all is to facilitate those meetings, to take you to those meetings, whether they be in person or online. That's up to the legislator and their practices and policies. So again, and I believe that we're going to make a social media post or something about the specifics of this, just for a little bit more clarity, because as he suggested, you're not used to having to go in to talk to legislators. You're not sure how to do it, whereas a lot of us have had experience, and we're happy to help you understand what the process is. That was the sincere intent, and so I just wanted to clarify that. That by emailing Dr. De Leon, we'll gather groups of like-minded opinions, if you will, together and make as many appointments as necessary to satisfy all those different groups. So I just wanted to make that clear, and we'll get something in writing. But in the meantime, if you're interested, as you suggested, you emailed Dr. De Leon and you heard back from her. As far as the vaccine mandate, I hear a lot of different opinions. I hear a lot of different voices. And again, this is something that again, the legislators are who you really do need to be talking. We hear you. They're the ones that are making the difference in legislating whether it's going to be a mandate or if it's going to be eventually put into law. But either way, we don't have any information about it right now. We put that in the Friday newsletter in the Parent Square. We don't have the mandate in writing. No, I had a meeting with a community member who said, I heard this. I can't confirm or deny that because the governor, while he made his announcement on October the 1st or the 2nd, whatever day that was, made the announcement for in the future and has given nothing in writing since then. So I hear you, I understand your frustrations, or that you're really happy about it. I hear you, but we really don't have the information about what is in that mandate right now. But we've added it as a bullet point in our Parent Square information, and as we get it, as information is provided to us as a school district, we will pass that information along. I do want to congratulate our Tartan football team that won their game on Friday night, now putting them at 12-0, 11-0, 12-0. They're going to be going out to Apple Valley this Saturday evening, I believe, and I wish them the best of luck and hope that they get a strong Glendora community support out there in Apple Valley. I also, and again, I do understand that there are multiple sides to this issue, but I do want to thank our nursing staff who worked the vaccination clinic this past Friday. For those who voluntarily wanted to do this, I understand that we had over 500 people that participated in the vaccination clinic, either students or I believe they were also offering boosters for anybody who is allowed and appropriate to have that right now. So that is extra time out of their schedule and their day that I sincerely want to thank them for. So I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Dr. Fernando?
No comments.
Mrs. Merkley?
I am very impressed and very happy with the parents and the students who are coming to speak to us. We may not agree, but I am glad that you are involved in telling us what we need to do or what you want us to do. I think about ethnic studies. There is a huge document, and we're going to have to read it. We're going to, as a board, we'll divide it up, and we're going to study it too. It is not the critical race theory, no matter what you say. It is not. It is ethnic studies, which is different. And we hope that you will be able, if you are really passionate about this, that you will, apply to be on the committee. It's going to be a lot of work because you have to read that whole document and you have to be prepared. But if you are passionate, you will come and apply for that, and we will hear your voice. It is not going to be one-sided. We're not going to pick those people who are all yay ethnic studies. It's the ones we want both sides. It has to be done. There is a limit. We're not going to teach that whole thing, as Dr. Kelson said. We will pick and choose what works for our district. And so I hope that those of you, especially who have spoken so stringently, so strongly against it, that you will apply and that you will come. We are not involved in picking the panel. But there's the panel that will choose those who will be on the committee. And there will be She said 10 to 15 for each of those particular slots. So there'll be, 70 people involved in choosing this. And so if you want your voice heard, that is the place where it will really be involved, be effective. This time of gratitude, very grateful for the teachers and staff who are working so hard to teach. If our students who are working, they've had to overcome, but teachers and the students and everyone's had such a difficult time, and I understand that. I know it was not easy being home and the transition back to school. So we are excited for them and grateful for all the effort that's being put forth. And I just hope that we all will have a happy Thanksgiving.
Well, again, going last, a lot of things have been said already, but I too took a walk and saw the line of people that ran from the little theater out to the street who chose to get vaccinated on Friday, over 500. And I also want to extend my appreciation to the nursing staff who actually stayed overtime to take care of all of the needs there. Again, meeting with parents recently, we talked a little bit about equity. And I wanted to share with them that equity in education is a different definition than some of the normal equity that people think. When we talk about equity in education, we're talking about equal access for all students to materials, to teachers, to sporting goods, sporting events, to academic events, to extracurricular, that all students have the right to this free public education and everything that goes with it. A district that doesn't use that, in fact, I can't even tell you a district that doesn't use the words all students. We are out there to help all students, and whether they grow a little bit or grow a lot, it's about growth, and it's about them having the opportunity to reach the potential. So we will always work for the good of all students, and that's part of what equity is in education. I love to be quoted and misquoted, and I agree with everything Mrs. Reuter said. We are trying very hard to facilitate things and ways for you to get your voices heard to the people that really make the laws. And I encourage you as well, if you have concerns about ethnic studies, get on this committee. There's not an administrator on it, and there won't be. I mean, other than Dr. Kelson, who'll probably facilitate the process, I'm guessing. There's not a board member on it. There's no way we're going to have anything to do with picking that out. It's going to be those folks that are listed on those bullet points. And this is a way for you to get your voice heard. I encourage you to fill out the application and go through the process. And with that in mind, do I need to amend the agenda again for bringing this person up?
If you like, or I can let him have my spot. It's totally up to you, but he's waited a very, very long time, and he is coming to us very generously from the city. And I thank him, and I'm so sorry for this long wait, Mr. Mateer.
Steve, you've been a rock star.
No, we have long meetings too in the city, so it's okay.
Thank you so much for coming, and I'm so sorry about the wait. Please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, just the floor is yours.
I have a presentation, and is there a clicker I could use? We'll give it a shot, right? Thank you. So again, my name is Stephen Mateer. I am the transportation manager for the city of Glendora. We just moved here about a year ago, and I have a 5-year-old who's at Cullen in the kindergarten program. So I want to thank you all for the great work you're doing, and we really enjoy it. He loves the school and loves Miss Summers, so thank you all. So I want to talk today about a really exciting project we have called the Glendora People Movement Project. You're right, it is a little finicky. Next slide, please. So I'll go through an overview of what the project is, our schedule, and our next steps. Next slide, please. So a little bit about what my division does. You're probably most familiar with us because we provide the midday shuttle for students for the junior high and high schools. We also provide dial-a-ride for seniors, commuter shuttle to the Gold Line and Metrolink. My division also does the long-range transportation planning for the city, and we also do regional coordination, so with Metro, SCAG, all the different government agencies. And we also do our compliance reporting for the city. Next slide, please. So what this project is, it's a combination of urban trails and first last mile. It's about 10 miles of improvement spanning the city. We're aiming to make walking and bicycling more attractive and safer for all users, and of all ages and all abilities. Approximately, it's about a $20 million investment. It is a substantial down payment on mobility improvements throughout the city. Next slide, please. This map might be a little hard to read, so I apologize, but this kind of gives you an idea of the scope. The green lines, that is our urban trail system, so those go along our flood control channels. The purple lines, those are what are called our first last mile plans. And I'll get into what is first last mile in a little bit. But really, this reaches all corners of the city and is really meant to have a cohesive and coherent transportation network. Next slide, please. So the urban trail system is probably what you're most familiar with. We built our phase 1 on the San Dimas Wash near Louis Pompey Sports Complex. These are fully separated bicycle and pedestrian walking paths. So this allows for anyone, moms pushing strollers, little kids on their bikes, even people who just want to go for a nice stroll, have a safe place to do so. This also gives an opportunity to do native landscaping and stormwater capture. The 3 channels that we have are the San Dimas Wash, the Big Dalton, and Little Dalton washes. Next slide, please. So I mentioned, what is first last mile? First last mile is a planning concept where we look at how does someone go from their house to the rail station or bus stop, and then once they're off their transit trip, can they safely, easily navigate to school, work, medical appointments, wherever they wind up going. Next slide, please. So the goals of our first last mile project, 1, are to connect the station to the village. For those of you who may or may not know, the Glendora Gold Line station is tucked behind those condos. It's not very intuitive how to get to the village. We also want to improve road safety. We know that particularly along Foothill Boulevard and Glendora, there are known safety issues with the design of the road. And lastly is economic development. People love the village here. I love the village. It's why I moved near the village. And we want to see that kind of feel extended further south on Glendora Avenue. There's a lot of opportunity there for a really active and vital corridor. Next slide, please. So the improvements, there's quite a few. Essentially what we're doing are protected bike lanes. So these are the safest bike facilities you can have. They are fully separated from traffic using a 3-foot barrier. We also have what's called a protected intersection, crossing improvements, and bus stop improvements. Next slide, please. And these are some renderings that we'll go through. So this is what Glendora and Ada look like today. Next slide, please. This is the proposed plan. So it's a roundabout with enhanced crosswalks, signage, wayfinding, and some landscaping. So really, I think this is an attractive addition to Glendora Avenue here. Next slide, please. This is looking south on Glendora. Next slide. And this really taps into kind of the economic development that we want to see. Right here is more outdoor dining, more vibrant streetscape, more opportunities for restaurants to come into Glendora. Next slide, please. This is at Carroll and Glendora. And this is one of the intersections that we noted there are known safety issues here. There's been a fatality here. I've tried to cross the street several times, and it's like playing Frogger, trying to go across the street. So what you see here are the enhanced crosswalks. That's the protected bike lane, as you see. Really, we're wanting a space that families feel comfortable walking and biking in, or someone in a wheelchair or a personal mobility device can get around. Next slide, please. This is at Glendora and Foothill. And this is the protected intersection. So what you see are what are called floating islands, those concrete little jut outs there. What that does is that it lets the bicyclists stay in their lane as they move through the intersection, so it cuts down on conflicts and also allows for the drivers to have better sight lines, so it reduces conflicts all around. Next slide. This is at Foothill and Grand. And this is with the flyover that you see at the bridge. So we're not building the flyover, that's the Gold Line, but this gives you an idea of the scale of that bridge, but also too with the improvements that we're thinking here, which would be again, bike lane, landscaping, and really more road safety improvements. Next slide, please. This is a little bit further, so looking towards Vista Bonita. Next slide. And again, similar here, supporting economic development along Foothill Boulevard and having safety. I'll note that parking is maintained on all these projects, so there is not a reduction in parking in these designs. So I mentioned we've done about, well, at least 3 years of outreach and planning with the first last mile. Urban trails go back probably about 10 years of planning. So really, it's something that we've been at for a while. The council's adopted our priority list, first last mile. We've done 2 demonstration projects. The most recent one you probably remember on Glendora Avenue was the demonstration project. We engaged 573 residents, which was huge for a project like that. And most recently, the council's directed us to seek funding for the overall People Movement project. Next slide. So I mentioned this is the big price tag for the project here. We recently were recommended funding of $6.6 million from the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. We were in line for an earmark, however, that has since fallen out with the approval of the transportation bill. So we're now looking for additional funding to cover that gap. But in a sense, we have enough funding now to proceed with the San Dimas Wash, and I'll get into the schedule on the next slide, please. It's to complete design and environmental review for all phases and to start construction on the 4 sections that you see there. So San Dimas Wash will be the first one that we start construction on. And so next steps right now is to complete the approval process from the COG, which will wrap up in May. Look for additional funding, and then also the COG will be the lead builder of this project. The City of Glendora is too small to deliver a project of this magnitude. The COG is much more well-staffed and able to deliver capital projects of this size. With that, I can take any questions that the board has. Sorry, oh yeah, sorry. It is the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, and so that is a collection of all the cities in the San Gabriel Valley.
A wonderful opportunity for our community members, but also our businesses in Glendora to have this sort of grand strategic plan that brings safety and accessibility to that Gold Line stop and greater area that way. So I think it's super exciting. You maybe touched on it in your last slide, but what sort of timeline are you pie in the sky hoping for here as far as all those fancy pictures are concerned?
Yeah, so the timeline ideally is that we complete most of that work by the time the Gold Line opens up, either in 2025 or 2026. So that's our timeline. Most of our work has been, from a planning perspective, is completed. Now we're working on what's called the design phase, so to get into how wide is this curb, how long is this crosswalk. That's about a year or 2 depending on the complexity of the project. So certain sections we can start now, like the San Dimas Wash is mostly done with design. Other stuff is a longer process. And I'll mention council has ultimate approval on all those designs.
Thank you for coming. This is really wonderful information to hear, to have this crossover from the city to the school district. I'm sure, there'll be a lot of people watching on the video, and a good way to get the information out. So I really do appreciate your coming and making this presentation here tonight.
Mr. Ellenson? No. And I would just like to commend, I'm sorry, Mrs. Merkley, go ahead.
I thought you were going to make me go last. I really just don't have anything except I'm really excited. The pictures are beautiful. I'm looking forward to that. Just sad it takes so long. But I understand. I'm building an AD in my backyard and forever.
I just want to commend, if it's the Gold Line, with your input possibly for that overpass over Grand and Foothill. That was going to be one of, I think, our worst nightmares, because those trains run every 20 minutes, and that just meant stopping four lanes, ways of traffic. And the same thing on Lone Hill. It looks like they're building an overpass there too, on Lone Hill and Auto Center Drive, which is already a nightmare to begin with. So I'm very glad that sanity ruled out over that to get those things going over the top. But thank you for coming. Appreciate it. I too think it's important that we work together and share our ideas, because it really helps all the same people we're serving. So yes, thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mateer. Appreciate it.
Now to our student board rep, Nadia. I didn't forget you.
Tonight I will be presenting a student board report on the behalf of Stanton, Sutherland, and Cullen Elementary School, as well as Sandburg Middle School. Recently at Stanton, students participated in the California Shakeout and Red Ribbon Week activities to promote safety on campus. Students dressed up, PTA decorated the campus, and students' faces were painted within the theme. PTA also hosted their first online fundraiser, and teachers are almost done with report cards. At Sutherland, students sent friendship mail to friends and teachers and participated in random acts of kindness around campus and learned about peaceful problem-solving strategies during Friendship Month. During Red Ribbon Week, students participated in themed dress-up days organized by the PTA and culminated the week with a Halloween dress-up on Friday. Their student support specialist is concluding Lunch Bunch with their 5th grade students and will continue their first session of Lunch Bunch with 4th grade students. They look forward to celebrating the 50th day of school on November 4th by welcoming students with bubbles and student-decorated signs. At Cullen, students enjoyed the Ned Show and their messages of persistence, perseverance, and positive thinking. The Move-a-thon, their PTA-sponsored annual fundraiser, was held on Friday night, and it was a family event that was attended and enjoyed by a large part of the Cullen community. They also participated in the Shakeout and had week-long festivities for Red Ribbon Week. At Sandburg, ASB showed their Spartan spirit by participating in the Glendora Homecoming Parade on October 1st. They dressed up as circus animals and trainers in honor of the Greatest Show theme. During the week of October 11th through the 15th, Sandburg 8th grade English classes were visited by Mrs. Boyer and Lynn to talk about how to do school after distance learning. They received tips for success and healthy habits, as well as campus resources for academic and social emotional support. Monday, October 18th was Fun Day Monday. Students were encouraged to meet new friends during an organized lunch activity. Students played a modified version of musical chairs for a chance to win prizes and also enjoyed popular music played over speakers during lunchtime. On Tuesday, October 19th, in recognition of National Anti-Bullying Month, Sandburg students participated in an ASB-hosted reflective activity in which they considered different bullying scenarios. Students were given multiple positive options for an upstander response, and they placed a sticker dot indicating their preferred action. And finally, the Harvest Festival took place after school on Friday, October 29th, with dancing, free games, activities, and a snack bar selling foods and drink. There was also a costume contest during the Harvest Festival with 5 categories: scariest, funniest, cutest, most creative, and a group costume where prizes were awarded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back to staff presentations and information. Dr. Garcia, certificated substitute pay rate.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to give you a little bit about the history and the background of our substitute pay rates over the past few years and the need to increase ours temporarily for this year only to remain competitive across the region, especially with many of our neighboring districts. First, I'd like to thank all of our current substitutes that substitute for us. We have a large group of professional substitutes, and they have been dedicated to Glendora Unified, many of them over many years of period of time. So we want to thank them. And we want to thank our sites, our current staff members, our administrators, folks that have had to step up and fill in when there has not been a substitute available to fill positions, which happens every now and again, especially this year. So over the years, we've had, and as I said, different daily rates. So we have 3 different rates for our substitutes: a day-to-day rate, a daily rate. We have kind of a medium-term rate if someone works in a position consecutively for days 11 through 19. And then we have this long-term rate for days 20 or more consecutively. And our rates go back over the years. In the 2000s, our day-to-day rate was $95 a day. Double digits for many, many years, as Mrs. Merkley knows. Yep. So $95, that was pretty standard for many of the 2000s. In 2014, we reached triple digits, and we had a big celebration, confetti, balloons, all the good stuff. We reached $105 per day. And that was a big day, right? In 2017, we reached $120 per day. And then this past year, we reached the $140 a day mark. Competitive with some of our neighbors. Many of our neighbors have increased their rates temporarily this year, well beyond that. And in order to remain competitive, again, for this year only, it would expire on June 10th. And we'd like to change the administrative regulation to have the daily rate be $170 and the medium rate, I will call it, $200. Our long-term rate here in Glendora Unified is based upon the education of the substitute and where they would actually fall on our salary schedule. So for many of them, that equals about $245, $250 a day if they're in one single position for 20 or more days. So we bring that to you, one, because it's an important time for it, and we'd like to make it a temporary increase at this time for the stated rates. Thank you so much.
I don't have any questions, but I do appreciate Dr. DeGrazia, you recognizing all these folks. We have had a surplus need for substitutes this year. We have newly created positions, a lot of different circumstances, both in the classroom and out in the facility all the way around. So I do really sincerely appreciate your bringing attention, and thanks to those people who have really helped out this year. Thank you.
We have had additional new substitutes sign up with the district very recently in the last month, 25 to 30 brand new substitutes, bringing them into the district, and we thank them for their service as well.
And I just want to add that when, a substitute gets that 5 a.m. call, or maybe a little bit earlier in the morning, and they get 2 or 3 of them, and they can decide where they're going to make the most money. Let's face it. And that's part of the reason why we haven't been able to fill those spots. So to remain competitive and make sure our teachers are supported, and because of the issues that they're having at the schools right now too, I just don't think we can afford to let our administrators be in the classrooms all the time, certainly in an emergency case or a last minute whatever, and a fill-in position. But we really do need to remain competitive. Thank you. That's what I was going to ask for. So moved? Okay. Moved by Mrs. Reuter and seconded by Mrs. Markley. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
I didn't see this under discussion action items, though.
Yeah, it is. It's at the bottom of page.
Oh,
Is it just a presentation, but you needed action?
Not really, but it's okay.
Oh.
You did now.
Okay. Sorry.
We thoroughly supported that. We are good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Ellenson, for catching that. So this one is under discussion action item, the approve and ratify the Educator Effectiveness Plan Executive Summary as presented. Dr. De Leon?
Yes. At this
I'd like to call on Dr. Kelson to help us update us on the Educator Effectiveness Plan. One of many plans. I just want for the audience and for the board and everybody out there to know that because of the ever-evolving change in with the regulations and state regulations due to the pandemic and everything else that's occurred, this last year or so, they've had us go back and rewrite plans and redo them and resubmit. And also partially because the state has received then new direction from the federal government or whatever has happened. And so then we have to rewrite to meet a completely different plan because the rules have changed from the federal government, et cetera. So I say all of that to say that it is with much appreciation that we thank Dr. Kelson and her team who are on some of the plans. They're on their 3rd, 4th, or 5th iteration just in the last school year. And then they get a deadline that says, in 2 weeks, we need this, and we have to turn it around. And sometimes they're very hefty, they're long, they're lengthy. And the LA County Office of Education, as the oversight agency, is very detailed in their review of these plans, as they should be, and sometimes sends it back several times as well to every district. And so it's been quite a process. And I want to thank you for one more plan tonight, Dr. Kelson.
So Ms. Heathcote and I are going to introduce the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. And next slide, there you go. So just starting off with our belief statements, and I'm not going to read these all to you because they've been the same for a very long time, and you guys look at them constantly. But most, if not all, of the EEBG aligns our Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. We love those acronyms, don't we? Align with our GUSD goal number 1, Strategic Initiative 1.5, which is professional development. So as we go through this, that's kind of what keeping in mind that we're using for our strategic PD. So next slide, thank you. So what is it? It is focused on professional learning for our staff who directly works with our students. So administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, people who are directly working with our students. And it is a 5-year grant going from 2021 to 2026. The amount, a very nice $1,439,067 there. And our goal is to increase educator quality and effectiveness as we work to support all students. I'm going to turn it over to you for more details.
Hello, make sure I stand close enough to the mic so everyone can hear. So when the EEBG came down from the state, it has 10 mandates, areas that we can do professional development in. And you'll see the first 5 here, all focused around making our teachers better professionals than they already are. We know they are well educated and they do amazing things. We just want to even elevate them further. So you'll see that they're normally based around things such as coaching and mentoring of our new staff, standard alignments, and then re-engaging our students is a very important aspect for us. Practicing to lead for improvement of student well-being, and then practices to build positive school culture and climate. Next slide, please. Thank you. Already done. You're good. All right, and then our last 5, they're going to again focus on our early childhood education, instruction for 7th through 8th grade on ethnic studies, professional learning networks that teachers may not already be involved in, and then instruction and education of our English learners, whether that be increasing integrated instruction through different content areas, or expanding our current program to increase to maybe a dual language program. And then finally, practice to promote and include students with exceptional needs. Next slide. Oh, you're good. I don't even have to say it. So how are we going to use these funds? So as Dr. De Leon mentioned, there's always a plan involved. So you do have the plan at your disposal, and we're going to basically use our funds. As you can see, we've attached them to our strategic goals, and obviously it's all about student outcome. Improving teacher effectiveness is what we're going to go for in order to make sure our students continue to grow and make positive growth. So when we can eventually go back to a pullout for staff development days, we will do so. Prior to that, though, we're planning on doing some summer institutes and after-school opportunities for teachers. We also are going to enact a steering committee to help us drive this work, because again, we know work that's done in isolation isn't the best work. So we want lots of from different educational partners, such as community members, teachers, students. So we're going to make sure that our steering committee helps us to even develop this plan further and make sure our professional development is appropriate for all teachers and classified staff and admin. And then finally, we're going to make sure that we focus on the data, because we don't know students are growing unless we look at data, and that's very important. Our next steps, Dr. Prince has already sent out the evaluation on our just completed November 1st PD. And so she'll be looking that again with our steering committee, and we'll look at that feedback, see things that went well, things that people may want to see repeated in our spring PD, help us plan again for the upcoming spring PD. And then finally, collection of data again to make a board presentation to the trustees and to submit to the California Department of Ed is a condition of receiving these funds. And we thank you for your time this evening.
Comments from the board? Questions? Mrs. Reuter?
I feel like there was a slide somewhere that sort of showed a little bit of a breakdown as far as the costs, the different areas were concerned, but that might have been the application document that way, so no problem. I just appreciate the transparency as far as what the money is and where it is going, and appreciate that you have to redo this over and over again. So if I understand this correctly, just to clarify, this is all directly for staff benefit. All these dollars, this almost $1,500,000, is all in working with staff.
Yeah, professional development for staff that will impact student outcomes.
Okay, and Ms. Heathcote mentioned this briefly, but I just want to make sure. Teachers, classified, and administrators, all levels of professional development. Yes. That's great. Okay, thank you.
So one question was, I know we've been hearing a lot about learning loss, and especially in light of the pandemic, is there anything specifically related to PD for our teachers because of the learning loss that's occurred, and if there's any strategies that are coming out that are helping teachers with that significant learning loss?
A lot of, if you notice on the first one, it talks about data-driven. So teaching our staff to really look at the data. We've been meeting with MTSS teams, so those multi-tiered systems of support. And as we've started that, looking at how do we know what our students are doing? How do we know, what are we doing for them if they are, and looking at every level learner, from the struggling, the middle, the super high achiever. How are we continuing to move everybody upward? But also looking at where are they at, so we can tell where have they struggled over the last year, what do we really need to supplement those, and then looking at, okay, here's how we're gonna address it, and here's how we know if it's working. That data is going to be key, both in looking at where our students are struggling, where we can help them excel, and if what we're doing is working.
I just want to commend you for, number one, applying for the grant. Because it takes, that in itself is a process too of a lot of writing. And that, we think of I heard a comment tonight, that our district's doing so well, we don't want to rock the boat. But and that's me paraphrasing. I'm not quoting anyone. I always use the analogy, and I use it of a doctor. Like, you don't want to go to a doctor that hasn't been trained in the latest and greatest. And even a doctor that's been a doctor for 20 years has to up his game, his or her game. And I think the same way with teachers. Things change, even though, they're teaching, but, we just have new ways of doing things, and teachers need to have a little shot in the arm too. Get refreshed, and maybe it supports what they're doing, and maybe they're going to learn something new. And we can always learn, and we can always improve. So I really, really appreciate that.
Great job, ladies. Thank you so much. It's hard work.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve and ratify the Educator Effectiveness Plan Executive Summary as presented?
Second.
Dr. Fernando beat you. It's been moved by Dr. Fernando, seconded by Mrs. Merkley. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. The next one, 5.3, approve the implementation of the tentative agreement between the Glendora Unified School District and GTA. Dr. DeGracia.
President Ohm, members of Cabinet, distinguished guests, it's my pleasure to bring this tentative agreement back to you for re-ratification. There were some slight changes to this agreement that was met with GTA at the end of September. They took it to a vote of their members. It was overwhelmingly approved. The main components of the salary and benefits did not change whatsoever. There were some small language changes under professional development and evaluation articles. Other than that, there was no change. We are required to bring this back by LACO because it has been more than 90 days since that agreement was brought to you in the first place. So we bring it to you again this evening with thanks to the Glendora Teachers Association and every single one of their certificated bargaining unit members. Thank you so much.
For the second time, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Reuter and seconded by Mrs. Merkley, that we can get this raised out to our staff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. So will teachers have this in their hot little hands for the holidays?
Some of them.
Mrs. Thacker?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
It'll come in two different forms. So there will be the main payment that will happen on the first paycheck in December, which will cover the heroes pay for the 2020-21 school year. That will be included, as well as their current 2%. Moving forward starting in December.
And that's retro to?
That starts in December for that particular piece of it.
Okay.
So the December 2% will be there. Prior to that will be a second check that will be done, and let me get the date for you on that.
November 22nd?
Oh, I have to look at my dates here again. I'm sorry, Dr. DeLeon, I don't have it in front of me. It'll be over the Thanksgiving holiday that we'll be receiving that check, and that date is on Monday. Monday the 22nd is when it arrives, and we will be offering, if you'd like to come in on the 23rd or the 24th to be able to pick up the check, you can do that. And that will actually cover the retro during the 21-22 school year. That goes back to potentially July 1.
Correct.
For anyone who's received salary during that time, minus if it was for summer school. Summer school had a different MOU that was on it.
Correct. Well, I'm just thrilled that this is finally done and that our staff will have this, the benefit of these funds.
And I'd really like to thank my team for making all of this happen and working so closely with LACO staff to be able to get these checks out to everybody in a very quick turnaround.
Absolutely. Okay, consent items. The Board of Education may consider the agenda consent items as a whole or as individual divisions. Any item may be removed by a member of the board for discussion. Does anybody want something removed? May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Fernando and seconded by Mrs. Merkley that we approve all of the consent items. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Which brings us to number 11.
I move we adjourn.
Well, step right up, Mr. Ellenson. May I have a second? Moved by Mr. Ellenson, seconded by Mrs. Reuter. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Meeting is adjourned at exactly 9:30.